You've watched the tutorial, you build the project, it works, and yet when you try to build something on your own, you freeze. That's not because you're bad at programming, it's just because tutorials don't work the way we think they do. So today, we'll be talking about why programming tutorials don't actually work and what actually does. Welcome to Inside the Stack, where we break down how real software systems work and how developers actually grow. I'm your host, Oluwole. In our first episode, we talked about what happens with request and response. In our second episode, we talked about scaling. Today, we will be talking about learning and why so many developers feel stuck, even after completing dozens upon dozens of tutorials. Let's start with something honest. Tutorials feel productive. You type along, you follow steps, you see progress. As you type, as you follow the steps, you see things that appear on your screen. Maybe you're building a login page, maybe you're building a dashboard or an API endpoint. As you're following the instructions, these things show up. They show up on your screen. And in that moment, it actually feels good. The reason being, something is working, or something works, or something is working. Your brain gets a reward signal. What is the signal? I'm learning. And in all honesty, technically, you are. But something subtle is happening here. You are not making decisions. You are just executing instructions. And that difference matters more than most people realize. Let's think about what's actually happening. The structure of the project that this tutorial is based on is already decided. The folder names, the file names, they are already chosen. The architecture is pre-designed. Even the bugs are usually edited out. When the author actually introduces bugs, there are bugs that are known to the author. You are walking a paved road. You are walking a smooth road. Paved road feels smooth. It feels efficient. It feels like progress. But the truth is, smooth progress is not the same thing as deep understanding. Here's the psychological trap. When you're working with tutorials and you see something appear on your screen, your brain doesn't distinguish between I understood this deeply and I successfully copied this correctly. Both trigger the same reward. And that's why tutorials are so addictive. You create the illusion of momentum. You feel capable. You feel ahead. But the real test hasn't happened yet. Because the reason why I said this is because you haven't had time to think independently. In a tutorial, uncertainty is removed. You are not asking questions. What are the questions? Questions like, what should I name this model? Should this be a service or should this be an utility? Is this the right abstraction? What happens if this fails? You are just following, and following feels safe. Now, if someone stops the video halfway through and asks you to continue on your own, would you know what to do? Or would you need to rewind the video? You see this moment where you hesitated when I asked that question, that slight anxiety, when you think about it, that's where the truth lives. The uncomfortable truth, tutorials don't test your understanding, they test your ability to keep up. And keeping up is not the same thing as thinking. So when I say tutorials feel productive, I don't mean they are useless. I mean they are seductive because they give you progress without requiring ownership. And ownership is where real growth begins. What am I trying to say here? My point is nothing beats experience. There is no how-to tutorial that will teach you or prepare you to build an application that would serve 100,000 users, 1,000,000 users. In real life, you will be the one to make these architectural decisions. You'll be the one to determine the project structure and so on. And that's where growth actually happens. Now, here's what tutorials are good at. They reduce friction, they remove confusion, and they compress experience. Well, that's helpful in the beginning as a beginner, whether you're trying to learn something. You learn the structure of the program. You learn how to declare variables, declare classes, how to name your files, and so on. What works in this program and what does not, or what works in this language and what does not. But if you live there too long, you build muscle memory without building mental models. You become fast at typing without becoming strong at thinking. A psychological effect that we often fall into when we watch tutorials is called the illusion of competence. It happens when something is explained so clearly that it feels obvious. You are watching someone break down authentication. They say we'll create a middleware, attach it here, hash the password, return a token. And you nod. Of course, it makes sense. But here's the catch. Obvious is not the same as internalized. Just because something feels clear doesn't mean it's yours. You can follow along building an API, defining the routes, creating the models, adding the serializers, hooking up the database. Everything works. But then someone says, okay, now design one from scratch. You have a different problem at this point. different requirements. There's no workshop, no video to watch. And suddenly you start thinking, where do I begin? Do you start with models? Do you start with your routes? Do you start with schemas, with authentication, with error handling? That moment of paralysis, that's the illusion of competence breaking. At that point, you know, oh, I don't really understood this. I was just following steps. And now in this age, we have AI. AI tools can now generate entire files for you, codes, lines of codes for you. But I tell you this, if you don't understand why the structure exists, you become dependent on tools instead of being empowered by them. If you don't understand the system, automation just hides your confusion. AI can accelerate you, but it cannot replace thinking. Now let me be clear, AI tools are not bad. Tutorials are also not bad, don't misquote me. But you need to understand that all of them are tools and they are dangerous if you only ever follow instructions, you train yourself to depend on these instructions. And software development, real engineering, is about navigating uncertainties. It's about debugging something that has no YouTube video. It's about designing something that no one has designed in your own exact context. It's about making trade-offs with incomplete information. No tutorial, I repeat, no tutorial or no video can simulate that. So what actually works if tutorials aren't enough? What do you do instead? Let's make this practical. Number 1, build without guidance. After finishing a tutorial, you close it. Don't rewatch it. Don't skim it. Don't just go back to one small thing. Rebuild it from memory. You will fill the gaps immediately. You will forget a config step. You will misname a file. You will struggle with a dependency. Yes, that's good. You see, that discomfort you're feeling is diagnostic. It shows you exactly what you understood and what you only recognized. You see, and that feedback loop, that's real learning. Number 2, change the requirements. Don't just copy and paste in the project or everything that you were taught. Modify it. Add a new feature. Change the data flow. Swap the authentication method. Replace the database. Just break the architecture slightly. Now, you are no longer replaying instructions. You are making decisions. And decision making is the muscle engineering actually trains. The moment the requirements change, you are forced to think, and that's where growth begins. Number 3, trace cause and effect. When something breaks, don't Google it immediately. Pause and ask, where is this happening? What layer is this in? Is this the front end? Is this the back end? Is this the database? Is this network? Is this just a logic problem? Is this a configuration issue? Is this a state problem? Now, at this point is where you start thinking in systems. And if you remember our first episode 1, where we broke down what happens between a request and a response, well, this is that same thinking. You are not just fixing errors, you're tracing flows. Real engineers debug by reasoning through layers, not pasting all their error messages into Google or any search bar that they find, or into any AI tool, maybe ChatGPT. Now, moving on. Number 4, explain it. Here's the simplest test. Explain it. Explain the architecture to a friend. Explain why you chose that structure. Explain what would happen if traffic increased. I remember when I was learning Rust with a group of friends and colleagues during the COVID lockdown, we had an online study group where we would meet every evening to explain what it is that we all learned to each other. Remember, if you can't explain it clearly, you don't understand it yet. And that's fine. That's okay. Teaching reveals weakness. But you see that weakness, it is information. And information lets you grow. Now, I want you to remember this. If you feel stuck, you're not alone. Most developers have been there. Ask your mentors. None of your mentors will tell you they have not been there. Every one of us have been there at one point in time or the other. We still even get there. You didn't fail, you were just taught in a way that optimized speed over depth. Tutorial culture rewards completion, but engineering rewards understanding. But you see, depth takes time. It takes frustration. It takes rebuilding. It takes staring at a blank editor longer than you like. I do this a lot, but that's not failure. That's formation. So what have I been trying to say so far? Programming tutorials don't fail because they are bad. They fail when they become your only strategy. You have to use them to start, but don't let them define your growth. Outgrow them. Struggle a little more. Think a little deeper. Build without guardrails sometimes. At that point, that's where you stop being a consumer of code and you start becoming an engineer. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who is stuck in tutorial mode. Subscribe to Inside the Stack for more conversation about real engineering growth and about thinking behind the system, not just the syntax. I'm Oluwole, and I'll see you in the next one.